was speaking. Just James.
Yep, I'm speaking.
He can't speak.
I can speak. He can speak.
Musical board. We made a trip to Birmingham.
Yes.
To visit the Laney factory in Birmingham and around Birmingham. We found plenty of history, but we also found some young guns in your office that only work here for about 20 years. Welcome, James Laney.
Thank you.
To our chat about Laney amplification.
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to you. Welcome to Birmingham.
Your dad is in South Africa.
Yes, he is.
At the moment. Yes. Because part of the music board was asking in how much he is still involved in developing amplifiers, and I think part of it we've solved during the tour today, because your strategy is not to look back too far and concentrate on what is ahead of you. And so is he involved? Is he part of the R&D, getting ideas chain?
He is still involved. He is the founder of the company. He is the chairman of the company, and he has this very special skill that he can walk into a meeting for about 10 seconds.
Okay.
A meeting that's been going on for maybe 5 hours.
All right.
And just go plop, and then walk away again. And that's all he needs to do.
Okay.
He has an insight. He has a perspective that's still very, very valuable to the company. But he would be more modest than that. He would say, oh, it's nothing to do with me, I'm just an old guy, I let the young guys do it.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
But his skill, I think, is in allowing us to do that, but also keeping us on the right track as well.
Okay, so he's more guidance than...
Yeah, he's day-to-day business, he's not really involved as an executive, but in terms of the product and the overall strategy, he's still on the scene and always will be, I think.
Yeah, and he also has been sort of part of the history, especially where only Birmingham and the surrounding metal and coal mining companies could be the right spot to build that up. So he started as a musician himself.
Yes,
and then
right.
As many of the musicians in the old day found out that the equipment they had wasn't serving their purpose, so he started to try and do it better. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty much it. He was a bass player in the band of Joy, which auspiciously had Bonham on the drums and Robert Plant singing. That was where he started. I think what he would say is he very quickly learnt that he should be behind the scenes, not out front.
Okay.
And really the imperative for making things was about most musicians being able to afford things that did the job properly. You know, at that time there was far less choice in terms of the products available, of course.
For sure.
And it was just about solving the problem. The biggest problem, I think, a lot of the time was that you had a bass player with a 100-watt amp and a 4x12 cab, a guitar player with a 100-watt amp and a 4x12 cab, and a vocalist with a 100-watt amp and a couple of 2x12 cabs. You know, how anybody could hear any singers at all through most of that period, I don't know. But that's what they did. That's what they did. So it was solving problems, and then it just evolved from there, really.
Yeah. So history portion with your dad involved inventing the amplifiers, bring them to a level where they can compete with everybody else around in the band. At the same time finding out that creating stuff is more important for him than performing. Made him found Laney as an amplification company. And you've been lucky enough to not just found the company Laney, but also sort of to be part of the starting point of one music direction. The working together with Tommy Iommi.
Yes. The home of metal is what they're calling it now. I think they never called it the home of metal then, obviously, but it's becoming known as the home of metal. The basic story there is that my dad made some amps for Tony, and then that became Black Sabbath, and that's what followed. And he's still #1 endorser to this day, and a very, very big part of the brand. And he's a very special guy to have involved all this time.
Yeah, when we came from the airport, we were especially pointed. There's where his house is behind the hill, and when we walked around the factory here, we've seen some of his amps coming in for changes. So there's it's still trying to modify into or evolve into a specific direction.
Yeah, I think it's great that because Tony is very synonymous with the inventor of the riff. He is the riff guy.
Yeah.
But even now, he's still playing and he's still creating. He's still writing music, and the album last year was hugely successful, and they're still trying to push the envelope and do new things, and that's incredible for the genre that they're in, that they're still doing that.
And doing new things is stuff you do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We like to think that tubes are obviously a very old technology that go back to when we started, and if not before. But what we feel is that there is nothing that quite replaces the tube.
Yeah, it's like there's no life without sex. To put it that way.
Yeah.
Sort of. We cut that out.
But at the same time, there are also new problems to solve that mean that tubes need to work in a certain way, or they can interact in a certain way, and we can use some of that old technology with some new ideas and bring them together in interesting ways, and that's what we've tried to start to do.
Okay. Within developing, you make sure that sort of the new stuff only comes after the old stuff has done its trick already, or is there interaction on the way already? I
think we're always restless. We're always designing, and sometimes we've got to just keep things back and say, well, you've got to let things take their natural course. You've got to hear what the market says before you come out with the next idea.
Okay.
So there is this constant dialogue with the artists, with the dealers, with the players about what the product's doing and how it's performing. But it's very easy to end up with far too many products. If that makes sense. So we have to try and keep the balance between those two sides. But we like to make things and have fun doing it. That's really what
that's one of the portions we've been able to see during the visit.
Yeah, good.
Is that you enjoy doing things and making a good package, good working package.
Good.
And also we found enough sort of different packages that allow the more sort of vintage or classic setup orientated guy to be happy with this, basically with all the amplifiers that are built in the UK. And the more modern / I want to have a tool that does more than one trick, like Ironheart Studio. That portion is done as well, with help from people overseas that can do that. For reasonable money and a good quality if necessary.
And it's getting that balance right, because I think it's possible to have a bad factory anywhere. It's very difficult to have a good factory anywhere. And I think what we're doing is we're taking our British heritage, using our design skills, using our production experience, and then finding the best place to make the product. In the world that we live in, it's not always possible to make that for the highest price, so there has to be that solution. But your iPhone is made in China.
Of course,
that's the
stuff like that.
And the technology is very, very high, and the ability to manufacture it is very, very competent if you go to the right place and you do it in the right way and control it.
Yeah. Plus, in my personal opinion, at least, there's a difference if it's sort of manual labor, like a hand-wired amplifier, where you would really make sure that you get the leads from A to B correctly. You might want to keep that in a vintage scenario back home,
of course,
where everything that is integrated and chip-based and stuff like that, you can give a board in the meantime, because they picked up enough knowledge about it.
Sure, and there are things that you simply can't do without PCBs. Some of the things that we're doing have to be done with pretty high technology, and that's the right place to go. You're quite right. When there's something very special and boutique, if you like, boutiques use too much. But the idea of that, yes, we do keep that here because there's that little bit of magic that's necessary.
Yeah.
So it depends on the product. We've always felt that it's important that the player should be able to get the product.
Okay.
And it's that there's always this case that you look at things and you say, well, why is that product so hugely expensive? Mm-hmm. And I think often the case is because they're made in very, very small quantities in very, very small places. Not because they're better or worse, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
What we like to feel is we are a mass production brand
mm-hmm.
with a bit of sort of boutique family business heritage that we keep close, and we use both sides of that in different amounts depending on what the product is.
It's just to give people the option.
Of course.
Although if they want to go sort of the inner circle family direction, you have to bring your wallet.
Yeah, of course, because and that's because not because we're making huge amounts of money. It's because we want to make good product, and sometimes those components cost a lot of money. And the way you manufacture them is expensive. But it's a function of how easy or difficult it is to make something.
Being the son of somebody in the music business, music industry later on, was your personal path sort of predictable?
No, actually, no. And I think as I said, my dad is a clever guy. In the sense that he was very, very smart. He never, ever pushed me to be involved in the business. And I think sometimes if you're pushed too hard down a path, then you go the opposite way. Yeah. I think that's how a lot of people ended up in the music business anyway. But I think for me, it was always there. I properly worked at my first music messe when I think I was 13 or 14.
Because you wanted to be there? Because
I wanted to be there. And I think my first NAMM show was I was 3 years old, but I think that's because it was near Disney World. I don't think that's...
Okay.
but I went and got my education, did other things, left university, went to do a job in London in an entirely different business, in the advertising field. And it was actually my wife who said, you're doing that job and that's all very good and you're paying the bills and you're working very hard, but you hate it. And you know about this business that you talk about all the time and is in your life.
Okay.
And this sort of light bulb came on, and I never ever really thought about taking that path. And then it was at Christmas time, and I spoke to my dad, and I said, maybe I should get involved. Mm-hmm. And he said, nah, you don't want to do that. You've got a proper job. You can make lots more money, lots more money in a different business. Okay. And I said, well, yeah, but I want to do this. And so I came out to the NAMM show in the January after Christmas. He said, just work the show, see how you feel. And then I came back, resigned from my job, and
said, okay, I want to be part of it.
That's 12, 13 years, something like that. So it's a decision I've never regretted, I have to say. But yeah, the first thing he did after I resigned my job and said I was going to work in the business is he gave me a huge pay cut from what I was earning in my old job. Well, but that's the way it is. That's the way it is.
Yeah, but although it's sort of a glamorous environment, it's not necessarily a glamorous job to be done. As the businessman in the business.
Yeah, sure. It can be a bit lonely. It can be a bit challenging, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to do anything else. I think part of that really is having a great team of people here who I've really worked to earn the respect of. I haven't just come in as the kid from the family. Because that's really important, and so this is not a business that's run by one person. It's a business that is a sum of its parts, and some really good people. Hopefully, you met some of them today, and
definitely
you agree.
We really enjoyed the folks you grouped around yourself.
Yeah,
that's fun.
Yeah.
Since plenty of them are in the company longer than you are, how often do you have to say, I like to do it that way, and they say, well, it's always been done this way?
That's always the case. There's always healthy debate, and I always enjoy it when people disagree, because it's comforting that they're not just passive. It's comforting that they're not simply just going through the motions. It'd be much more frustrating if everybody just said, yes, boss, no problem. But because
consider it done.
Well, exactly. We all make. Sometimes you have to just encourage things along a bit.
Okay.
But that's more about just. That's the same for anything, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's basically the same in every kind of business, and the difference always makes if the heart drives it, and if there's a person that identifies with it, or if there's a shareholder behind it or stuff like that. That's normally what identifies the good ones from the not that good ones. So keep up what you're doing, because we like what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
We like the way you do it, and we like the people that you work with. So.
Thank you. Well, that's a big compliment. Big compliment indeed.
And when we come back home, we're going to put all this out on tape and video, internet. So
good.
Thank you for having us here in Birmingham.
Yeah, thank you.
And good luck with new products.
Thank you.